then add the qualifying new growth, which is 513. You get a levy limit of 44,298. And so then, you see down the bottom here, the debt exclusion is 2,669,446. That's the total amount of money to be raised to pay toward the debts for this year. So then, does that make sense?
It does, except that your 44 million is a carry of 2.5.
Yes.
And my understanding was we're going for 1.7, not 2.5. Is that correct?
This is to come up with the levy limit. This is about the levy limit. Now, the mayor's proposing a lower tax rate that doesn't raise it all the way, yes.
Okay.
This is to show you what the limit is, and how the limit's calculated.
Understood.
Let's see, I think I have that for you too. Okay, hope this doesn't look too ridiculous, this one. Let me start explaining this one. The mayor had asked us to come up with a breakdown on where we would be with an actual levy if we raised the 2.5 or 2 1/4, 2, 1 3/4, etc. Down to 1.5. So if you were to look at the first column, basically all the way down, the column farthest to the left, that's going to give you our 2014 levy base. You're going to add to it the 2.5%. Come down a little bit farther, we're going to add in the new growth, and then adjust what I call the adjusted levy limit. Then we're going to add in the debt exclusion to give us the maximum allowable levy. Move over to the second column. If we were only raising 2.25% rather than 2.5. That 2 1/4 represents a 961. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay. Does that help you with what you were asking?
Sure.
I'm not convinced that you meant that. So what the mayor's looking at is the 1 3/4%, raising 1 3/4 rather than 2.5.
So instead of raising 1.06 million, we're going to look at raising
747.
747,000.
Correct.
Which means that effectively the mayor is leaving 250,000 in additional burden on the table.
Actually, more than that. It's comes out to be the excess levy capacity is down a little lower down here, and we can't break the tax rate down to less than a penny.
Right.
So there's a little rounding that goes on up and down with what extent you decide to go with. So if you raise, there's always going to be an excess levy capacity because you can't break the tax rate down to less than a cent. So if we went to the maximum tax rate, there still would be a 20,600 excess levy capacity. Because if we went up another cent, we'd go over the limit. So if you follow it across to where we're at 1416, there's an excess levy capacity of 341,000. Unless I did my math wrong.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the tax levy at the tax levy increase at 1 3/4% is 700, let's round up 750. And the tax levy at 2.5, which is the max, is, let's round at $1 million, and that leaves a delta of 250,000. So there's an extra 100 grand in there.
67,000. And there's the rounding that comes in play too.
Mm-hmm.
So, 167. And this, yeah, so the mayor's planning to raise 320,000. There would be an excess levy capacity, you know.
There's a capacity, there's a
Right.
potential capacity for 340,000. Right.
Correct, 349.
So that's effectively the savings that the
Yeah,
taxpayer sees
right.
over what could be the potential tax base.
Correct.
So we've identified a savings. Theoretically.
Yes.
And that answers my question.
Yeah, can you tell us where we stand in terms of our reassessments? Where are we in that cycle right now?
We're done.
We're done.
Yeah, the value's done.
So the values.
We wouldn't be able to set a tax rate without that. That's done. The Department of Revenue has approved the values, and the Department of Revenue has approved the new growth.
Where are we in those cycles, though? How many years?
Oh,
That's
it's,
what I mean.
okay. Every third year, we have to be recertified.
Are we at the
Otherwise-
end of the 3-year cycle, or are we starting?
Well, this
a new
is,
one?
it's every third year, so think about that, and every third year, we have to be recertified, in other words, a full reappraisal. In the 2 interim years, we do minor adjustments.
Yeah,
But this is the year where we have to do the full reappraisal,
it is.
right, 2014, so we've done that. So the new assessment should reflect market value, 100% of market value as of January 1, 2013. And it's based on all market activity that occurred during calendar 12.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So,
Further questions?
Close the hearing. City council meeting, couple minutes.
Good ride.
Before we begin our meeting tonight, just the anniversary's coming up very soon of the tragic death in Newtown, Connecticut. So if we have a moment of silence, remember those victims. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City clerk, do the roll call for the city council meeting of December 9th, 2013.
Councilor Sullivan, excuse me, Councilor Jones.
Present.
Councilor Sullivan.
Present.
Councilor Cameron.
Present.
Councilor Connell.
Present.
Councilor Cronin.
Present.
Councilor Derby.
Here.
Councilor Earls.
Present.
Councilor Harquist.
Present.
Councilor Herzog.
Present.
Councilor Hutchinson.
Present.
Council President O'Brien.
Here. Late file items.
Councilors will see on their desk there are 4 late file items. There is a communication number 1 from the Chamber of Commerce with respect to the rate. There is a communication number 2, which is an order. I'm sorry, that's Auto Works, which is a second hand motor vehicle license. There is Honch's Way, which is a committee item that was not in the packet, and there is an order with respect to Cushing Park, which is also a committee item that was not in the packet, for a total of 4 late items.
Motion to suspend the rules to accept the late file items.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to public comment.
Anyone else want to open that? Be there in half hour.
Keep signing up, then I won't have to give anyone extra time, that's good.
Is that it?
Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. The Time limit for public comments, 20 minutes in duration. You may speak only on an agenda item. First is Lisa Mead.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the City Council. Lisa Mead, 13 Purchase Street. I'm here on behalf of Phil & Sons Auto at the corner of Merrimack Street and Ashland Street. You have item number 10-1 on the agenda tonight, which is the second reading, a resident-only parking limitation on Ashland Street from Merrimack Street to Ashland Court. At the last meeting, Councilor Jones was kind enough to give us a reprieve while my client attempted to find some additional parking for their employees, and I'm happy to say that there are some very kind and cooperative adjacent properties in the area that have agreed to lease some spaces for that purpose. But I would ask that the item be amended this evening so that the resident-only parking doesn't start until 68 feet up from Merrimack Street on the west side, so that cars that are being serviced on the bay adjacent to my client's property on Ashland Street can wait and without worry of getting ticketed for a short period of time while they pull in and out. That's adjacent to my client's property. It is the property frontage for my client's property, and the 68 feet ends at the end of the property line. So they would be allowed to use the street in front of their property and not somebody else's. And I would ask the council's consideration for that amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mary Hasslinger.
Mary Hasslinger. I live at 299 High Street. I'm here this evening to ask you to vote in favor of Mayor Holliday's suggestion to fill the vacancy on the library board. And I'm speaking of Sarah White. I know Sarah White professionally, mainly through the Historical Society, where she is the administrator. Sarah White is a very energetic person, very intelligent, but I think most importantly, she's absolutely reliable. She's well organized, and she would be an asset to absolutely any board, commission, or committee. And again, I hope you will cast your votes in favor of Sarah White for the opening on the library board. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Germanaro.
Good evening, Mr. Council President. Good evening, members of the City Council. Rob Germanaro, 2 Ashland Street. Doesn't really matter what color the curbs are on Ashland Street. Phil & Sons Automotive parks where they want to. They've made a blatant use of the road and extension of the business for the last 8 or 9 years. It's come to a head. 3 Newburyport police cruisers were dispatched to Ashland Street on Saturday night for a man raking leaves in the street, and we've got cameras out now. It's just a series of foolishness, really, and it's time to wrap it up. So basically, the facts are that Phil & Sons is a commercial use in a residential zone. That's a fact, and the other facts are that you know they've you know, made use of the street as their own. They work on cars there. The burden really is on them to fix this problem. We never had a problem before. Phil & Sons in the neighborhood, having grown up there all my life as a young man, and the City Council has already given a 9-0 vote at the first reading. You know, I don't know what's going on Walnut Street, and quite frankly, I don't care. I'm more interested in what's going on Ashland Street, Kent Street, and Parker Street. Before this thing gets out of hand, I would ask that the City Council do the right thing here and pass it unanimously on a second reading of 11-0. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Cleat.
My name is Cleet Kajak. I live at 12 Walnut Street. I don't know what the reference to Mr. Germanaro to Walnut Street was, but why the markers for the land were moved and why it has to be redone and surveyed, they didn't disappear on their own. And the police were called because he was trespassing on their property. So that's that. But my question is tonight, more than as far as what's going on there, is what's going on in Ward 4. And my question is for my ward councilor, Mr. Jones.
No, it's not on the agenda, sir. Not on the agenda. You signed up for resident parking, Ashland Street, and tax rate.
So you were ready for me?
Nope, I
It's
said,
on tape. I'm gonna ask the state to subpoena this tape. You stop me from speaking about my ward counselor and asking him a question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yep. Dan Orman?
You called the police, that was very nice. I'm no lawbreaker. But this is not the end.
Yeah, it is.
Good evening, Council President, members of the City Council. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you.
Hard act to
Just here,
follow,
pardon?
though. It's a hard act to follow.
It is a hard act to follow. I could sing and dance if you'd like, but I don't think you do. So, I'm sorry, I'm just a little flustered now. Here in front of you tonight to advocate again for the single tax in your paperwork. You have information from our board and our Economic Development Committee. Again, we would be remiss if we weren't here on behalf of the business community to advocate strongly as an economic development tool to keep the single tax in Newburyport to attract more businesses. We have a few vacancies coming up in the park, and we're hoping to fill those as soon as we can. And again, I would ask you to advocate to vote unanimously on that tonight. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Bruce Menon?
Bruce Menon, 83 Lime Street. Thank you, Mr. President, city councilors. You have an item on your agenda tonight, which is a transfer requested by the mayor of $161,000 in excess or extra, never excess, Chapter 70 funds and local aid to be transferred to the schools. I would encourage you all to support that. The Joint Ed read that out unanimously, and I would encourage you to support that. And I wanted to thank you, as some of you are coming off the council, for the service that you've given this year, and particularly I want to thank Greg and Tom, who have been passionate advocates for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Menon.
Thank you, Bruce.
Crystal Eldred?
Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Crystal Eldridge. I live at 36 High Street here in Newburyport. I also work at Phil & Sons Auto Repair. I am asking that you please vote in favor of not passing the resident parking only on Ashland Street. We have not been an inconvenience to people. We keep our vehicles parked and stationary until the end of the business day at 5 o'clock, where we all go home. We're very civilized people. We do not cause any trouble. And as far as any safety issues that anyone has brought up regarding any parking on the side street, if Mr. Germinara actually would trim his bushes, which are taller than a full-size pickup truck, he would be able to see out of his driveway, no problem, and not have any safety issues for visibility whatsoever. We do keep our distance from parking from his driveway, which is not an issue. And he's clearly got enough space in his driveway to park at least four full-size vehicles. So we please ask that you do not vote for the resident parking, because it would be a very big inconvenience for the employees at Phil & Sons Auto Repair. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Linda Smiley?
Hi, Linda Smiley, 7 Atwood Street. I'm also chair of the Newburyport Historical Commission. I'm here tonight to talk about the potential zoning ordinance amendments that are before you. There's no question that modifications are needed to our zoning code in Newburyport. Our code reads like we are entirely a suburban subdivision with unachievable and inappropriate setbacks, as well as heights that allow new construction to be grossly out of scale with the surrounding neighborhood. For locations in the downtown and north and south ends, our zoning board constantly struggles with pre-existing conditions which do not and cannot meet the codes as written. So variances are routinely handed out since existing conditions don't meet the codes anyway. The mayor has stated that a complete study of our zoning ordinances will occur to look at the code holistically with the intention of creating a document with provisions that are sensitive to the scale of our historic neighborhoods and provide the best and fairest ways of regulation for the insertion of new construction. These zoning changes that are before the council will make it easier for developers to build things that are out of scale and out of character, and harder for abutters to have input on and appeal of such decisions. The right approach is not to do these shotgun changes, but revise our zoning ordinances in a more thoughtful and considered approach. I urge you to vote no to the zoning ordinance before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Stephanie Nikotich, 93 High Street. The council is voting tonight to adopt a zoning change which will make it easier for developers to depart from zoning in residential areas. Currently, Newburyport requires a variance to create a new nonconformity for 1- and 2-family buildings which have an existing nonconformity. This approach is in line with Massachusetts law, as city staff can confirm. The planning board has recommended a change from a variance to a special permit, saying this is based on case law. But case law is actually inconclusive. Their recommendation says the one case in point does not speak to situations where a new nonconformity is involved. A special permit, as opposed to a variance, can be granted without proof of hardship. It is nearly impossible for abutters to overturn a special permit through judicial review. The change is meant to lessen the burden on applicants to create new nonconformities, which it will. But it will increase the burden on abutters interested in preventing new exceptions from zoning. I request that the council vote against adopting this change and look forward instead to the comprehensive zoning review for fairness to both applicants and abutters. If our zoning isn't fair to property owners, let's change it instead of making it easier for owners to ignore. Thank you, and without trying to prejudice my Ward 2 counselor, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Tom Coulter, John?
Tom Coulter, John, 64 Federal Street, Council President O'Brien, and members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I am opposed to changing our zoning ordinance to allow new nonconformities by special permit instead of by variance. It is widely agreed that our city's zoning does not match the existing conditions of our dense historic neighborhoods, and that may make life more difficult for the ZBA, but that is why we are planning a long overdue zoning overhaul. The current allowance by special permit of extensions and alterations to existing nonconformities has already harmed neighborhoods in the view of many residents and abutters. Now our zoning would be amended to allow entirely new nonconformities by special permit. That is likely to accelerate the harm. The purpose of our zoning ordinance is to conserve the value of property with due consideration for the character of the neighborhood. At a minimum, the ZBA needs guidelines to condition permits on compatible scale and form, and to prevent situations like the one at the corner of Bromfield and Hancock Streets as one example. Today, the ZBA has no guidelines to consider exceptions from zoning. Until this council adopts some guidelines for the ZBA to at least consider, we should not be making it easier for the ZBA to grant entirely new zoning exceptions. I ask that the City Council vote against adoption of the change as proposed and reconsider it only when it is accompanied by improvements in the zoning ordinance. And before I finish, I too would like to thank Greg Earls, our Ward 2 City Councilor, for his long years of service. Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Tom. Linda Miller?
Linda Miller, 20 Ship Street. I too am here to speak about the zoning change vote that is coming up tonight. I think that this change is not good for Newburyport. I think that it is not good for the community in that it stifles the voice of the people. The people being the taxpayers, the homeowners, your constituents. I think that the zoning review should take precedence, and that these piecemeal adaptations that you're voting on should not go through. the zoning review is coming up, and that should be the determination for these issues, not a piecemeal vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Aroken.
Members of the council, my name is Nick Aroken, and I'm a resident at 3 Ashland Street. So the reason that I'm here today is concerning the resident-only parking at the end of the street. And I think the essence of my issue can really be summarized in these two. So one is from Google Maps, and it just kind of outlines the general safety issue, which is...
Could you speak up, please?
Yes, so the two documents, there are photographs. So I think one of the documents I emailed a little bit earlier today, but the essence of the photos is, one is from Google Maps and just outlines the general condition of the parking situation on our street. The other one is a little bit more concerning us as residents and why we're here, really. So what the safety issue is. Right now, there's not really a control by which, if there's a dangerous situation, so if it's winter time or if there's some kind of blockage, that we can kind of lift up the phone and request that the cars be moved. Both I and Rob now have stand-away orders against us, so I guess we're barbarians. Besides that, kind of when I tried calling in the past, I got a blunt no. And really, this is the only way through rules in which our interests can be protected in terms of we can pull in and out of our driveways safely. So, so that's essentially the gist of what I had to say. If you could please study the documents to make the decision, I think they kind of clearly show the issue. And I think the precedent for putting up signs has been done in the past, so that should also be there. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bill Harris.
Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Bill Harris. I'm just briefly here to thank all the city councilors for their service, but especially those who are departing, this being their last city council meeting, those who won't be serving us again. I want to thank all of you for the work that goes into being a city councilor. We know it's a lot more work than we see at the city council meetings. And it just highlights, I especially thank Tom Jones for finding all these details and troubles in the ordinances and helping you with them and working on cost savings. And my Ward 2 Councilor, Greg Earls, thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Scott.
Thank you, Council President. I'm here, like the previous gentleman, to thank you all for your service, and particularly for those of you who are leaving tonight. I think that's Councilor Hutchinson, Councilor Daravan, Councilor Jones, who I've seen supporting other people with holding signs over the years, and thank you for that. I want to thank you, Councilor Sullivan, as well, for your passion for the city. And I want to give a special shout out to my good friend, Greg Earls, who I came to his campaign because of the waterfront. I really didn't know him before then, which might have been the case for a lot of people in the city based on the way the primary went. But I've learned to love and appreciate you, and appreciate all the love and passion you have for the city of Newburyport. Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you. Andrew Casson.
Good evening, City Council President, City Councilors. I'm Andrew Casson of 240 Merrimack Street. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Harbor Commission. I'm the chairman of the Finance Committee for the Harbor Commission. Before you tonight is a transfer request. I wanted to make you aware that I'm here to answer any questions, as well as the fact that it's important to recognize 100% of the money that we're looking to transfer and we're looking to build this new facility will be borne by the boaters. An analysis, an analysis has already been done by the Harbor Commission as well as the city auditor, and it's critical that it's stated that all of the money we see going forward to make this facility happen and for the city of Newburyport will be borne through the enterprise fund by the boaters. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Don.
Hi, Paul Don, 343 High Street. City Council, thank you for your time. Also from the Harbor Commission, would like to talk to the merits of this project. I think from the folks that I've spoken to, it's pretty well supported. That said, I think it's important to point out that as a process, we've have relied heavily on the planning department to bring us through this process, and we're at the very start of this process. And we look forward to working with all citizens that have done research about the waterfront, about the needs of the waterfront. But at the same time, we want to point out that, as Andrew has said, this is a project that is funded by the Harbor Commission's budget. We've looked towards maintaining it, how we're going to maintain it. And that's very different than a concept for the waterfront and how we're going to fund it. This is something that has been discussed for a very long time. It's self-funded, it benefits boaters, it benefits pedestrians on the boardwalk. It hits on or speaks to the cultural tourism that we're now talking about, bringing people in from their boats and having them stop in Newburyport as opposed to someplace else that might have showers and laundry facilities and that type of thing. In addition to that, it's multimodal. People talk about, let's get people out of cars. Well, let's invite them in via the boat. This is a good thing for Newburyport. So as a Harbor Commissioner, I'm supportive of it. As a resident, I'm supportive of it. And it's a great project. We're just getting started. We welcome the public's input, their research, and by all means, come to our meetings, and we look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone didn't sign up wish to speak? That's the end of public comment. Move on to the consent agenda.
The consent agenda this evening consists, Mr. President, of just the minutes. The appointment, first reading of appointments have been removed and is in the regular agenda, so it's in for approval for November 25th meeting minutes. That's
Motion
it.
approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Now, I would ask Councilor Dervin and Councilor Cronin to escort the mayor in.
Want to get on our backs?
Rise for the mayor. Please be seated.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you briefly this evening. Every once in a while, there is a young person in our community who does something extraordinary. And tonight, I have the opportunity to recognize the work of one such amazing young senior in our high school. Lauren Healy, would you please come up with your mom? And Molly Ettenborough, would you please come up here? I'd like to introduce you to Lauren Healy, senior at Newburyport High School, who has done amazing things. First and foremost, she has been a member of the Gulf of Maine Institute since she was a freshman. She also participated in the, I just want to make sure I say the name right, the Real World Design Challenge where she worked with 7 people to build an airplane. She also was part of the Sailbot, which was a college-sponsored challenge to build a robotic, autonomous model sailboat that can perform a series of tasks. That happened this summer. In addition, she's also a sax player, a fencer, and tumbles. So I'm thrilled to recognize Lauren's work, but the reason she's here today is because of her science fair project, creating a green roof. And not only did she do an exceptional job in a statewide challenge, but she decided that it was important for our community, as a green community, working with Molly, to create a sample green roof, which she spent about 50 hours building down at our compost facility. So if people do not know about green roofs, I encourage you to go down to the compost facility, to our education center there, and look at this magnificent project that Lauren has created. So as a result of that, today I have accommodation for Lauren Healy. The City of Newburyport is proud to acknowledge your groundbreaking design and the building of a green roof. With your success in developing and implementing this innovative design, the green roof you created as a demonstration site to educate residents will be used in Newburyport Schools' place-based education program. It's an ingenious work of art, and one of which Newburyport is very proud to display. Now therefore, I, Donna D. Holliday, Mayor of the City of Newburyport, speaking for its residents, do hereby extend our heartfelt appreciation and admiration for your creative design and commitment to your community. Given under my hand and seal this day, 9th day of December in the year 2013. Donna D. Holliday.
So I would just really like to thank, at the end of the science fair last year, Molly Attenborough and the mayor came up to me and asked me if I'd like to build the green roof on the shed at the compost center. And I would just really like to thank them for giving me that opportunity, because now I'm able to further my testing, and I'm again doing my science fair project on green roofs, and it can be much bigger than it was last year.
Good,
We as residents of this community are going to be watching your career, and we expect great scientific things from you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good. Cute.
Thank you.
Move on to the regular agenda. Communication.
First communication is a late file communication. It's a letter from the Chamber of Commerce, signed by members of the board, Scott Eaton, Mary Williamson, and Orman, and it argues on a number of bullet points for a single rate.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Communication 2.
That is an application for a secondhand motor vehicle license. It's from Auto Works. It is a reapplication of a number of years by Ed Carrier with the surety bond. And
Motion approved.
Second.
Just let the council know, if you decide not to have another meeting, you have to approve it in one reading. You have to waive rules, but it's up to you.
Motion to suspend the rules that appointments may be accepted in one reading.
Second.
What? Ordinance.
I just said, if people decide not to have another meeting at the end of the month, we have to approve all the appointments and all the licenses in one reading tonight. And that's up to you people.
Licenses, what's before us?
Move the question?
Go ahead.
Move to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Appointments. No transfers, I'm sorry. Transfers.
First transfer is from the mayor's free cash, $320,374 to the general fund, balance budget reserve account, same amount.
Motion approved.
Second. Discussion?
Mr. President, I know we'll be dealing with the tax rate shortly, and this is a way for us to be able to have the lower 1.75 increase instead of the 2.5% for the reasons that Mr. Raycroft and Mr. Spolo spoke about earlier, so I'd recommend that we approve this.
Councilor Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could just ask a question to whoever is best qualified to answer it. I'm just curious, the last time the council has approved to transfer monies from free cash to reduce the tax rate? I don't think that happened last year.
That is what we did last year, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
The same amount almost.
We changed.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll take a motion to take out of the order the Joint Education Committee so we could.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Could you read that, please?
This is a motion to approve the supplemental budget request number 2. It's based on actual FY14 revenue, including finalized new growth figures and additional state aid for education. This is a memo from the mayor to the members of the city council. I am requesting $161,070 in funding be applied to the school department, specifically account 53201, to reduce an anticipated deficit in the school budget. This amount reflects the difference between what was originally forecast for Chapter 70 funding based on the initial House version of the state budget and what the city will actually receive now that the state budget has been finalized.
Motion to approve? Oh, sorry. Motion to waive the rules?
Any discussion?
I have one.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Mr. Menon referenced, our subcommittee did vote in favor of this 2-0, and I do ask for your support. And I also thank all the councilors that did show up for that meeting and the councilors-elect that also showed up.
Any further discussion? Councilor Sullivan?
I'll vote to approve this tonight, but I want to make it clear that I know we have a new superintendent in town, and she's got her work cut out for her. In my opinion, our school system in Newburyport is in trouble, okay? The deficit is projected, as most of us know, to be roughly $500,000 to $600,000. It's been reported that it could go as high as $1 million. This figure is not enough, and I would like to encourage the mayor and the new council coming in to seriously consider funding our school department to a level where they can operate and educate the kids in this city. It's the kids that are getting screwed. They really are. I know kids personally that are going on to different schools studying engineering that are trying to catch up to the other kids that have gone to schools elsewhere in the state. And I think it's deplorable. We are supposed to be an affluent community, and we got to start funding our school system at that rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
To approve the supplemental budget request number 2, Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darvin.
Yep.
Councilor Earl.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchinson.
Yes.
Council President O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Move on to appointments.
First appointment is Paul S. Cardaci, 135 Beach Road, Unit C5, Salisbury, Constable for Civil Business until December 1st, 2016.
To approve and
Second.
one reading?
Second the motion.
Any discussion? Roll call.
This again is for the first appointment. Counselor Jones.
Aye.
Counselor Sullivan.
Yes.
Counselor Cameron.
Aye.
Counselor Connell.
Yes.
Counselor Cronin.
Yes.
Counselor Darvin.
Yes.
Counselor Earls.
Yes.
Counselor Harquist.
Yes.
Counselor Herzog.
Yes.
Counselor Hutchison.
Yes.
Counselor Bryan.
Yes.
Second appointment is Sarah M. White, 349 High Street, to the Library Board of Directors until January 1st, 2020.
To approve?
Second.
In one reading?
One reading.
One reading?
Second.
Any discussion? Counselor Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to echo the words of some of the residents who spoke earlier about Sarah White. I think she's a great person and she'd be great in this particular role. That said, I do have a question in general, not really looking for an answer tonight, but just to share my concerns. I've spoken with the mayor's office about this. It's confusing to me why the Board of Library Trustees have 7-year terms, considering that most other boards, committees, commissions, and authorities in the town have much lesser numbers of years. And I'm hoping that next year we can look at really looking at all the boards and committees and whatnot and figure out, hey, should it be 7 years, should it be 4 years, should it be 3 years, whatever it might be. Thank you.
It's statutory.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
This is for the appointment of Sarah White. Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan.
Yes.
Counselor Cameron.
Yes.
Counselor Connell.
Yes.
Counselor Cronin.
Yes.
Counselor Darvin.
Yes.
Counselor Earls.
Yes.
Counselor Harquist.
Yes.
Counselor Herzog.
Yes.
Counselor Hutchison.
Yes.
Counselor Bryan.
Yes. Third appointment.
Josiah B. Morrow, 21 Fair Street, to the Waterfront Trust. Until
Motion to
December
approve.
1st, 2018, excuse me.
Motion to approve in one reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Jones.
Aye.
Counselor Sullivan.
Yes.
Counselor Cameron.
Yes.
Counselor Connell.
Yes.
Counselor Cronin.
Yes.
Counselor Darvin.
Yes.
Counselor Earls.
Yes.
Counselor Harquist.
Yes.
Counselor Herzog.
Yes.
Counselor Hutchison.
Yes.
Counselor Bryan.
Yes.
Rubber stamping tonight. Cooking.
Move on to orders.
It's gonna fall apart soon.
Order 1.
It's a residential factor FY 2014, which reads as follows. That all property within the city of Newburyport be taxed equally and that the method to determine this percentage of the local tax levy to be assessed by each class of property is established by the adoption of residential factor blank and the setting of a blank tax rate FY 2014 in the city of Newburyport. Submitted to Councilor Edward C. Cameron.
Motion to approve with a residential factor of 1.
Second.
And the setting of?
Discussion?
I said blank on the second, I'm sorry, that's just a return.
Yes. Roll call, please.
Setting residential factor of 1, Councilor Jones.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darvin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchison.
Yes.
Councilor Bryan.
Yes. Order number 2.
That the city of Newburyport tax rate for FY 2014 be blank for all classes of property. Submitted Edward C. Cameron.
Motion to approve with a tax rate of $14.16.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Councilor Jones.
Aye.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darvin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchins.
Yes.
Councilor Bryan.
Yes. Move on to ordinances.
This is a tabled ordinance that is
Do we
in the
need a motion to
agenda.
take it off the table?
Motion removed from the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now you may read it. Thank you.
Section 13-180, resident parking, add to section G2. Ashland Street, beginning at the lower corner of Ashland Court and proceeding northerly on Ashland Street to Merrimack Street on both sides. Submitted Councilor Thomas F. O'Brien. I'm sorry, Jones.
E. Jones. F. O'Brien.
That was actually consistently
He
the same.
outranks me.
Same,
Only for the
same
time
correction you made 4 weeks ago.
And I'll move to approve the corrected.
Vote against it.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. This has been, this has been around and discussed and is still somewhat of a topic of discussion. I think that when I first brought this forward, I said that 8 years ago when I started on the council, I remembered my first neighborhood meeting at the foot of Ashland and Merrimack. And it seems that that meeting has yet to conclude. And while it ebbs and flows, it seems to be in flow at the moment. And what's before us in this ordinance, I would offer this council to consider amending, because it's been brought to my attention that there have been steps made by the commercial enterprise in the residential area to lease spaces so that they will not be parking permanently in the residential neighborhood. And their ask back is that the 68 feet of their frontage on Ashland Street be excluded from the parking restriction. So I offer for your consideration that amendment to this ordinance.
Second the amendment.
Discussion on the amendment? Roll call on the amendment.
Really?
I asked for a clarifying point.
Okay.
So that amendment would be to reduce the size of the area by 68 feet on one side only.
The westerly side.
On the westerly side.
Thank you.
Southerly for 68 feet.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I too remember dealing with this issue when I first came on the council 6 years ago and speaking to Mr. Arokin at that time. And as councilors get involved in neighborhood disputes, I remember thinking, I wish this was one that would just go away. I did not act in a formal capacity at that time, although Mr. Arokin and I spoke several times. I also spoke to Mr. Jim Renara at the time, and that situation seemed to get better recently. 6 months ago, I know there was some conversation between the clerk, kind of as the parking overseer, with Councilor Jones, then the ward councilor, and myself. And as I started to pay more attention again to it, really that problem never went away, and it did intensify. So I'm glad we're going to do something on it. I'm not sure about how I feel about this amendment, but I feel. There's a lot of parking there on site, and whatever the arrangements with neighbors, I hope those can be concluded. Part of my research at the time, 6 months ago, and what I had done 6 years ago, this time there had been a lot of parking right on the sidewalk that fronts Phil & Sons on Merrimack Street, and I almost got clipped pulling out of there doing my research one weekday morning, so that would not be a good way to get in an accident when you're doing city council business. So, it really is a problem. So my question, I guess, is, this 68 feet on the westerly side, is 68 feet all of the frontage, and then Phil & Sons or customers would be able to park in front of 2 Ashland Street? Is that what the amendment would produce? So there would be no, so basically anyone could park on the westerly side.
Mr. President, the proposal is to restrict all of Lower Ashland Street to Ashland Court to residential parking only. The amendment is an olive branch, if you will, to the commercial enterprise for use of its frontage, which would be unrestricted, so that customers, mechanics, et cetera, could park adjacent to the business, but not continue to encroach on parking that is more appropriately reserved for the neighbors. And therein lies the rub. It's the overflow of commercial vehicles into the residential neighborhood, which clearly outsteps the bounds of which this pre-existing non-conforming use in a residential neighborhood should be or would customarily be restricted. And while the intent was to restrict that overflow, in fairness, I offer the opportunity here to allow them the use of their own frontage on that side. Although, as the former ward councilor and now councilor at large states clearly, There is a great deal of parking available on the site, although it is principally used for storage of non-registered and to varying degrees destitute vehicles. So I think that anybody that's driven by there has seen that while it's great that a business is such that traffic overflows, it's not great if you're the next door neighbor, and these neighbors deserve relief from the impact that this business has on them. And since, as we've both said, 6 or 8 years of trying to find an informal solution has failed, this is what's before us. So take the take the amendment as you will. Consider it whether or not you think it's fair and equitable. But clearly, doing nothing, I think, is not the solution here.
Councilor Earls?
To really show my age, I met Councilor Erford Fowler on the site to discuss this many years ago. And I'd like to throw something out, and with all due respect to Attorney Mead, I don't know if it's 68 feet is truth. I didn't go out and measure it, all due respect. I'd like to give the abutters a little bit more leeway and say, let's bring it back 6 feet, whatever the property line is. So I don't want to put a footage to it tonight. I'd like to say 6 feet from the abutters property line, bring it back 6 feet, and that's where it'll start. That's where or where it'll stop. It depends on what you're looking for. So that the non-resident would be from the corner, parking any time would be from the corner up until 6 feet away from the abutting property. That way, I think the clerk could sort of administratively make that happen if we chose to vote that way. It just gives some a little bit more relief. It doesn't force us to count feet as an abutter's property. So I'd like to make that amendment if there's some possible way to make it friendly.
There are no friends in this game. However, I'll second his amendment to the amendment.
So we're going to have, you can talk on the amendment to the amendment. Go ahead. Councilor Cronin.
Just pointing out something that may or may not be obvious is that there is a fundamental law of no parking within 20 feet of the corner. So we have 68 feet, so we're down to 48 feet.
42 feet.
I'm sorry, you're right, 42 feet. No, 48 feet, and then your amendment.
And that's what we're discussing now.
A typical parking stall is 20 feet, so
2 cars.
you can go from there. So there's about 2 spaces there for this business.
2 cars.
Any further discussion? The vote on the amendment?
Amendment to the amendment.
To the amendment, which is?
To be 6 feet from the property line rather than 68 feet in total.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Clarification, if I may. That's just want to clarify which direction the 6 feet is going. Up the hill or down the hill? What was your intention? That wasn't clear.
North. 6 feet north from the abutters.
Down the hill.
Down.
Thank you.
I don't know.
So read the motion to the motion, the amendment to the amendment?
The amendment to the amendment that was offered is that the zone would start at 6 feet on the northerly side from the abutting property line to Phil and Sons. Running northerly to Merrimack Street, or whatever footage that remains.
62 feet from Merrimack Street. Councilor Herzog.
It's 6 feet from the property line, I believe, correct?
Councilor Herzog.
Mr. President, at the risk of being laughed at, I'll say what I need to say.
This is good. I'm going to start laughing already.
Nice. There's no risk here. It's a jovial meeting. I just find it intriguing, for lack of a better word, that we're talking about this as a full council and not something being talked about in the committee where this was referred to. I think it's great, and I do thank the various representatives from the various entities who have come to this council meeting tonight and at prior iterations to share their thoughts. I wish this was all talked about in the committee meeting, so then it could come out of committee and we could just either approve it or not approve it. Amendment to amendment to amendment, it's like, where does it end? But
Makes you good live TV, that's all I can say.
people are watching.
Monday Night Live. Any further comments?
Yeah.
We have no information.
So it's roll call on the amendment to the amendment.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darabin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchison.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes. So the ordinance as amended?
So that is now the amended.
That is now the amendment.
Amendment.
Ask. Roll call on that, right? We don't need another roll call?
I think you need it.
Hallelujah. Okay, move on to ordinance 2.
No, excuse me.
We need to vote on the
Excuse me.
full.
Need to vote, yeah, vote to accept.
Motion on the floor is just that.
We need, that's what I said, we need another roll call. Motion on the floor to accept, as amended.
Well, motion on the floor now, I believe, would be it's a motion to approve. As approval contains the exclusion of that area that we now defined, which is 6 feet from the abutting property line, running northerly to Merrimack Street.
Western. Running northerly on the west side of
On
Ashland.
the west side, thank you. So that's the motion.
Is there a motion?
Second.
It was moved.
It was moved.
Second?
Yes.
Roll call?
Point of order.
Yes.
Is this the one reading?
Yeah.
This is the second
Second
reading
reading.
of the
Second
ordinance.
reading. Second reading. On October 28th was the first reading.
So this is the motion.
1983.
Exactly. And Erfurt Fowler made the motion.
I was here for that.
Ed still has his pillow.
Actually, for the record, I have Councilor Jones making it seconded by. Okay. Ready, Mr. President?
Ready? Aim.
Motion approved. Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Aye.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darabin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchinson.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes second reading.
Please don't come back for another 8 years.
Ordinance 2.
Ordinance 2 is also a second reading. It is the zoning map, section 3-C, which treats 2 parcels. Parcel 1 goes from R2 to B1. That's 81 Story Avenue. Parcel 2 at 83 Story Avenue goes from R2 to zoning district B1.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Councilor Jones.
Aye.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darabin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchison.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes. Ordinance 3.
Hold on for a second while I throw some papers here. It's a second reading. Section 9, non-conforming uses and structures. Submitted Councilor Barry and Connell. It is renumbering the existing subsection 2, subsection 1, under subsection 9B3. Delete the text, subsection A in its entirety, and replace said text with what is shown before you. If you'd like me to read it, Mr. President, I would.
Yes, please.
General exception. exemption, pre-existing non-conforming single and two-family residential structures and uses may be extended or altered, including extensions or alterations which will add a new nonconformity or intensity or extend an existing nonconformity with respect to the lot coverage, height, open space, or front, side, and rear yard requirements of this ordinance, in effect at the time of the application, therefore, except as provided in subsection C below regarding structures on lots that are nonconforming for area and/or frontage. B3, delete the second sentence in its entirety and replace with the following. Additionally, any proposed extension or alteration that will add a new nonconformity shall only be permitted by special permit from the Board of Appeals under section 9B2A. Submitted, Councilor Barry Ann Connell.
Hearing nothing, we'll move on.
Motion to approve.
Waiting for.
Second.
Discussion. Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll rise again, as I did 2 short weeks ago, and ask the question whether or not there was a compelling need for us to dispense with variances, a question that I think was answered with a silence punctuated by crickets and the rapt attention of my fellow councilors who said, "What?" And now I hear that some of the people who I, over the years, have learned to admire for their dogged preservation of historic treasures, of their service to the city, and for a number of years, are standing here saying, well, "Wait a minute, this isn't this isn't something that we understood, nor do we feel that it's a good idea." And that is juxtaposed against the fact that we fully intend next year to review and revise our zoning code. So my question was, why did we need to do this? I didn't get an answer. I didn't feel that there was a compelling interest in defeating it, so I did in fact vote in favor of it. But hearing the concerns of people who, again, I've learned to admire their judgment over the years, and which clearly causes me to run against the grain of my reputation as the anti-preservationist, pro-development demon that I've apparently become. In this instance, I'll rise on behalf of those who wish us to tread lightly and wait for some prudent thought on eliminating variances.
Let's go on.
I'm going to ask the planning director if the president would allow him to speak to address the reason why the planning board brought this before us and the reason why it was deemed prudent on the part of the council to vote in favor of it last meeting.
Thank you. Andrew Port, Planning Director, Office of Planning and Development. There is some case law, and that's summarized in the packet that was given to the council previously. On point, the case law basically says, in conjunction with the Zoning Act, the State Zoning Act, that this communities can provide by special permit that extensions and alterations of non-conforming uses for these single and two-family homes, there's some preferential treatment given to single and two-family homes in the State Act, that those can be given by special permit. Right now, we have this differentiation in the Zoning Act and the zoning ordinance of the city where we allow by variance or by special permit. We're trying to consolidate that into one permitting process. There are concerns that were raised earlier this evening relate to whether or not there's enough public involvement, enough consideration by the ZBA when looking at these applications. Rest assured that with the amendment that's before you right now, there's still the same hearing process. Abutters are still notified. All issues that the ZBA currently looks at in whether someone's doing a small expansion on their home, an extension, or just an alteration of existing structure that's non-conforming. In all instances, they would be looking at the same size, massing, architectural details, things that might be of concern to abutters. I remember a case in the last year that was of concern to some abutters. All of those issues would be looked at by the ZBA. It's still a discretionary permit. The ZBA does not need to issue those approvals. It's a discretionary permit. So they look at all those issues and then they make a decision. This change will make it consistent across the board what application people are applying for. Frankly, from my experience as a planner in Massachusetts, most applications for variances do not meet the strict interpretation of a hardship that is called out by the Zoning Act. Therefore, I think we are essentially recommending that the city be honest with itself about what people are applying for. If most applicants, in this case, it's not just developers, the concern about developers, it's actually homeowners that also benefit from this change. Rather than having to apply for a variance and show that there is an unusual circumstance related to the lot itself, topography, the shape of the lot, et cetera, homeowners can apply for a special permit. They have the same hearing process, abutters' concerns are addressed in the exact same way, but there's less need to demonstrate a unique situation on that lot that's different than everything else in the district, and there's less chance of frivolous appeals of the decisions that are issued by the ZBA. So for those reasons, I recommend the change that's before you right now. I think it benefits all of us because we have essentially the same permitting process, same issues addressed, but with less of the nonsense that typically comes up with frivolous appeals, and less of the confusion that's related to the hardship question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Cronin?
Right now, I think P Preservation website is about to crash. I want to be voting no on this. And the reason I'm voting no, all right, is that I've been to 2 ZBA meetings. And one, we had 127 residents of a neighborhood fighting against a building. We are now effectively lowering the bar to make it easier. To me, this isn't a NIMBY, this isn't a one-person frivolous lawsuit or court action in an appeal. This was an entire Back Bay neighborhood, and the variance was issued. So for me, we're doing comprehensive zoning in the next year, maybe 18 months. Let's revisit it then. Let's look at it hard. I voted yes as this slid through in the last meeting. I've gotten 3 calls on this, or emails on this, in the past 2 days. So I may be for it in the future, but right now is not the time to do this.
Yeah, I might point out another article of testimony that came out in the joint meeting of the Planning and Development Committee and the Planning Board. And that was that the vast majority of applications for this kind of relief are from individual homeowners, people trying to extend a use for their either their convenience or to provide additional comfort in their own homes. And the bar being set as high as it is adds expense, legal expense, architectural drawings, the sort of thing that, as folks who have sat on the zoning board, Councilor Jones and myself, will attest, can sometimes be really onerous on the individual property owners. And the argument that was made was that, among other reasons, that the same amount and to similar standards of discussion will take place without having to meet the sometimes expensive and onerous test of meeting the hardship for a zoning variance. And I was persuaded at the time, and that's why the committee voted unanimously 2-0 to agree with the planning board that this was a reasonable interpretation consistent with state law and case law, consistent with the standard used by most communities in the Commonwealth to give a fair hearing to proposals, yet not overburden the vast majority of the applicants who are individual homeowners. And still on that basis, I think that that was a prudent move to make, and I urge your approval again tonight.
Councilor Earls?
Given that it sounds as if the current the administration and the incumbent council is looking forward to reviewing a zoning at large, it's peculiar that this is coming out piecemeal. It reminds me of when I was working on State Street between High Street and the traffic circle to come some kind of parking issue. And it became parceled, and the council basically told me, come back with something large, come back with a unified plan. Why don't we wait? Whose benefit really is this? To the average person? I don't think so. Perhaps to the individuals who want to do an addition that butters may not love, builders coming in, and that's all good. Certainly not against building. I've made my living many years in the industry. But I don't see why. In fact, I was kind of surprised. I missed last meeting, and when I got the packet and saw that it was a unanimous vote from everybody here, I was a little bit surprised, because I thought it was going to be very controversial. So I will vote no. I'd like to see it as part of perhaps a bigger zoning overview that we seem to have been committed to.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to add on to what Councilor Earls said, I mean, this was originally, all of these measures were introduced in September, so I know it takes a little while for them to get to committee. And when we voted on this 2 weeks ago, I think it was one of these things that I think we should have taken a second look and had a better understanding. I think over the next year, or whenever the new zoning code goes through a public process and we get all sorts of input and start making decisions, I think we're going to be faced with a lot of these questions of things that we can change in isolation before the whole foundation is reset, which again may take a year. Maybe that's going to take longer. I actually think we'll be lucky to get that done in a year. And I think we need to take them one at a time. Scrivener's errors and things like that are one matter. I mean, maybe we're going to be looking at some other matters tonight. But I think this one is just, it's really kind of underlays the whole way we do zoning implementation in this community, and obviously it's caught the attention of some people who have those legitimate concerns. Yeah, maybe homeowners who are mostly impacted, but I remember the hearing that Councilor Cronin alludes to, and there was a lot of neighborhood opposition to that, and it really, and the decision was made perhaps on the merits, but it was one that was not terribly well received in those neighborhoods. So I'd rather hold off on this and vote no and take it in the full package next year.
Roll call.
It's a motion to approve ordinance number 3. Councilor Jones.
No.
Councilor Sullivan.
No.
Councilor Cameron.
No.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
No.
Councilor Darvin.
No.
Councilor Earls.
No.
Councilor Harquist.
No.
Councilor Herzog. No?
No.
Thank you. Councilor Hutchison.
No.
Councilor O'Brien.
No.
Motion fails.
Move on to number 4, reconsideration.
Number 4 has a motion to reconsider that was submitted to the clerk pursuant to Rule 14. So that motion, I believe, Mr. President, is on the floor.
Move to approve and, I move to waive the rules and approve in one reading.
Second.
Was there a second on the reconsideration?
Point of parliamentary order, Mr. President?
We need a second on reconsideration?
Correct.
There's a reconsideration request, we need a second. There's no second, we
Second.
move on. There's a second.
Second.
Any discussion on,
Reconsideration. Oh, reconsider. I don't know.
Councilor Herzog and Councilor Jones?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, I guess I'm a little confused. I
In the crowd.
had initially, when I initially voted for this 2 weeks ago, I voted against it. We did not have enough councilors for a supermajority, so the vote failed. And my rationale for voting no 2 weeks ago, when I later thought about it, Mr. President, I was trying to connect all these different zoning ordinances that we took out of committee. And in particular, I looked at what I later thought about later that night, I thought about the zoning map change, which tonight we just approved a second reading of on Story Ave, to change that from one zoning district to another zoning district. And changing it from one zoning district to another zoning district, I remember asking that question 2 weeks ago, well, what did that mean? Did that mean that any developer can now come in and build something? And the answer was no, it has to go through all the permitting boards. And what I should have thought, and I didn't think about it until after the fact, is this particular zoning request about dimensional controls, essentially the same thing. It would need to go before a permitting board for something to be approved. Any developer can't just come through and say, file fees for a permit and say, hey, I'm going to build this. So that was the reason for my reconsideration. That said, Mr. President, I received an email.
We're only talking about the reconsideration right now. Reconsideration's been a second. We'll have discussion, reconsideration.
Fair enough.
Then there'll be a vote
Yes.
on the reconsideration.
Thank you.
Then you can approve or
Thank you.
disapprove. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the reconsideration? Then we'll have a vote. Roll call. Council Jones? You have-
Mr. President, I'm going to ask a parliamentary question, if I
Okay.
may, if that's in order.
Mm-hmm.
We're reconsidering the first reading, and then if reconsideration is approved by the council, then we will have a first reading vote. Because it's an ordinance, it has to be published and then second read, and that puts us in a very interesting conundrum in so much as it seems to be a general consensus that there won't be another meeting of this council this year. So my question is, once this is read first reading, and should it pass, what will be the disposition of it? Will it be carried over? Can it be voted to be carried over into the next council meeting, or does it die by lack of second reading?
That's me. Better you than me, pal.
I stayed up.
First of all, the way I understand the process is the motion to reconsider needs to be second. That's just a vote on whether it's going to be reconsidered. So assuming that passes, then the councilor or anyone gets an opportunity to make a next motion, which could be, waive the rules. If no one objects under section 22, waive the rules and approve in one reading, which would solve the issue. The issue being a difficult one, which is, can you approve in one session, change councils, and have a second session, have a second reading? I don't think there's any law on that. It's a gray area. It's not a good policy. Could you do it? Probably. Would be recommended? No. But I don't think we should get to that point, because I think someone's going to waive the rules. Does that answer? In an artful manner? Your question.
So a zoning change can be, the rules can be waived, and it can be enacted without publication and with only one reading? I think that's my question.
Assuming it has already come in and gone to committee, which this has, because the charter, at least the existing charter, would say...
And the joint planning board meeting was held.
Yes, but you need an emergency preamble to do it in first introduction, but it's already been introduced. It's gone to committee, come back out, and now we're reconsidering it. So yes, I do think you can waive the rules and have it in one reading and not publish it. Zoning requires 8 votes, but it doesn't require 2 hearings if they're waived. But again, that's if no one objects.
Splendid. Thank you.
So we're voting on the
motion to reconsider.
Reconsider. Roll call, please.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Sullivan?
No.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Councilor Cronin?
Yes.
Councilor Darren?
Yes.
Councilor Earls?
No.
Councilor Harquist?
Yes.
Councilor Herzog?
Yes.
Councilor Hutchinson?
Yes.
Councilor Bryan?
No.
Motion passes.
I'll move to waive the rules and approve in one reading.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Herzog.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Just if I could direct a question to the planning director. I received, and it looks like by the CCs, the other rest of the council received the same email earlier tonight from Sheila Mullins, who had a question about this particular ordinance. She asks to vote no on it. She writes, as I quote, "The existing zoning has been proven to stand in land court. The proposed zoning opens the city to lawsuits because of its ambiguity." And I was wondering if you could just respond to that relating to this particular ordinance.
Sure. I'm not sure if, and I apologize, I'm not sure if her comment was referring to the prior ordinance that was discussed by the council. It may be that she was referring to that one. I'm not sure, not having received that email.
I believe she was.
Yes.
I believe so, based on the context. If she was referring to this one, it probably is a little bit out of context.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm happy to go further.
Yeah. Nice shuffle.
That was a record short answer, too.
Thank you, Mr. President.
He's learning.
I'd like to make a motion for an amendment to remove the qualifier for compatible. So I'd like to make an amendment to strike generally as a qualifier for compatible.
I will second that.
Where is it? I don't see it. Where's? Oh, there it is. Under the last sentence.
Yeah, it's incidental. You mean striking generally and generally?
Discussion?
Thank you, Mr. President. The reason for this amendment proposal is just to remove any ambiguity that might be with having qualifying compatible. It's either compatible or it isn't. I don't want to leave any future wording openings for lawyers to say, well, it's generally compatible. So I wanted to make it more clean cut, where it's just compatible or not. That was my reasoning for offering the amendment.
Somebody said, Councilor Cronin seconded it.
May I ask a point of clarification, Mr. President? So we are specifically talking in the third from last line,
And then the
third word, generally to be
Yeah.
struck.
And then the fifth from the last line, the fourth word, it's in there twice. It talks about generally compatible height and generally compatible setback. So I'm just asking that we remove the generally qualifier.
Councilor Earls?
I think I need to ask a question. I'm very uncomfortable with the one reading. Basically, we're not going to publish this, so we're defining something which could define literally the downtown for decades to come. I would like to know, I would not like to kill it. I'd like maybe to not carry it over, let the new council pick it up. But will voting it down mean we cannot bring it back again?
2 years.
If we table it and let it die, can it be brought back again? So I would not like to vote it down and have it 1 year, can't come back again. But I really do not like the idea of running this without publishing it, without letting people at least have a chance to open the newspaper and see what we're going to do here. We killed it the first time, so it never got published. It had a first reading, which failed. This is not right. I still represent the downtown, and I still have to think this will define, or has possibly defining the downtown forever. Again, I'm not against it perhaps, but I'm not the only one in the room. I'm not the only one that lives in this city.
Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. If I might address the elephant in the room, and I'm not referring to
I'll
any,
lose weight.
I'm not referring to any Republicans. If there are any, probably not. This is intended, in its purest intention solely, to be for a specific use. We're changing the zoning, and this is why I voted against it 2 weeks ago, because I thought that there was a better way to skin the cat, if you will. But this is effectively a request by the largest landowner in town to change zoning so that he might move forward with his parking garage and hotel plan. And it's been presented to me as that, and that our vote on this is solely to move forward and not lose any more time on the proposal to build this non-waterfront hotel in the downtown area, and that the lack of variances is necessary on the setback for this project to go forward. So for me, this is a leap of faith on a plan that the administration and the developer have. I haven't seen it, but it's a leap of faith. And I guess at this point, given where we are politically, as much as I think that this is a huge change for a minute solution, I also have to consider the fact that we are going to revisit even this change very shortly when we redo our zoning. So for all of the reasons that I thought that a widespread change from variances should be in the larger discussion, I understand the immediacy of this. I thought an overlay district would have been a better solution, but that's not amenable to the parties driving this. And I think that we need to understand what's at question here. What's at question here is we're creating a zoning change to implement a development. That's what we're doing, and that's what our vote will absolutely mean on this issue. And the idea that we're going to do it in one reading is because of the immediacy of need for the proponent. That's what I think people need to think about.
Mr. Port?
Mr. President?
Thank you. If I could just respond to 2 points that were just made. One is with respect to New England Development, the largest landowner, if you will, in the downtown. It's actually, this proposal is actually not with respect to that one development. It's actually a change that makes sense for the downtown and also for the city's municipal parking garage project. Both of those projects need, I think, a more flexible permitting process for relief that might be needed. And the example I would give is if you look at Market Square, State Street, some of the historic buildings come right up to the sidewalk there. That's the historic fabric we have in the urban form and of our downtown. If we require a variance for someone to get an exception to come back to what we call a zero lot line setback, where the building comes right up to the sidewalk or close to it, we're going to have this gap tooth situation. We should not make it a hurdle for someone to go through to make a building that fits within the context of our downtown. Right now, we have a 20-foot setback from the street line that's required for the buildings that are indicated in here, whether it be a hotel, a mixed-use building, or a parking garage. The mixed use is referenced in here because the garage itself is assumed to have mixed use on the first floor, some sort of retail shops to activate the first floor. Again, this is a municipally, a project that the city itself wants and has talked about for some time to bring the parking off the waterfront. So both of these projects are actually benefit from this process, and frankly, as the planning director, I think it makes sense for the B2 district, the downtown that's referenced here, because the same rule applies elsewhere. If you're having infill development, it makes sense for those buildings to at least be allowed to come up to the same setback as the contextual historic buildings that we have. Right now, you actually have to demonstrate, again, back to the hardship question, you actually have to demonstrate a hardship to make a building that fits in the downtown in the same context. All this does is it makes that burden of proof on the applicant a little lower so that the ZBA can essentially look at, does it fit within the context of the surrounding streetscape, the surrounding buildings, and not have to look at this unnecessary hardship question, which may be irrelevant for all the applications that are involved. The second issue is relative to advertisement or publication. This was actually advertised twice as a result of the zoning hearing process that's required by state law and by the city ordinances. So this has actually been advertised already some time ago as a result of the Planning Board, Planning and Development joint public hearing. So there's been adequate notice already about this change, I would say, with respect to the concern that was raised previously. Thank you.
Councilor Conlon?
Not at this time.
Any further discussion? Councilor Sullivan and Councilor Cameron.
I'll be very brief, Councilor. Thank you, Mr. President. For much the same reason that I voted against it the last time that it was here, I intend to vote against it again. For the main reasons, you know, I don't want to make it easier on developers. I am very concerned about issuing special permits in the downtown area. And judging from past experience and the bitter conversation, very short but bitter, unprofessional conversation that took place in this chamber directly after the meeting last week, I'm not willing to take that leap of faith. Thank you.
Councilor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am going to vote in favor of this, as I did at the last meeting, and as the Director Port pointed out, this had been advertised twice. This was brought before the council 3 months ago, And I know sometimes it takes a while to get things out of committee, so I don't see this as something that, New England developer or a parking garage, proponent is trying to push forward at the last minute. I mean, if we don't deal with this tonight, it doesn't pass, I suspect this is going to come again. I've never too often been accused of being pro-developer, but I think we want to be encouraging developers to do the right thing. And getting it to look like the rest of downtown is what this is all about. So I think, as a political football, I don't think any of us want to be, seen as pro-CARP or pro-New England development. But the bottom line is people are okay with the hotel, and people want to get parking off the waterfront, and this is one of the ways you're going to be able to do that. So I think, dealing with this as a separate issue, I could make some of the same arguments Councilor Jones made about our rezoning of 81 and 83 Story Ave. I mean, what's the big rush with that? Why don't we hold that off until we rezone the whole city? I think this is the same sort of thing, so it is too late for that now because we just voted on that. But I certainly think this is something we should move forward on. It's going to help the waterfront, and that's really ultimately what people are looking for.
Councilor Darvin?
Point of order, Mr. President. If this fails again, what is the time frame where this could actually come back to the new council? Is there a time frame on this?
It can come back immediately. Yeah, it could come back in January if necessary. Again, I don't recommend that mainly because the length of time it's taken, of course, to get through the hearing process already with the subcommittee. It takes a while to do these things just procedurally. Unfortunately, a lot of that's mandated by the state and the zoning ordinance. If we're going to end up in the exact same situation, I do think it makes sense to do it. I would recommend or request the council do it now rather than deferring it even to the next session.
Councilor Connell?
Yeah. I know that the passions run strong about large landowners. I believe that complicated questions sometimes take a long time to kind of ferment and reach their maturity. But I also know that this council has had sufficient time to consider this. We have been through a rather extensive process with the planning board, looked at this quite closely. And I would argue on that basis that we should not kick the can down the road or duck our responsibilities. We have the expertise, we have the understanding of these issues. And I think for many of the arguments that would have been previously made, particularly by Councillor Cameron, I agree that this is a good time to move forward on this, to clear away an impediment to resolving our waterfront parking problem and clear away an impediment to building something that might, in the future, look like a kind of a gap in the streetscape of our downtown. So I think that this is going to be up again in January, before that council, if we don't vote for it tonight, but I don't see the advantage in the delay. If the intention is to resolve the problems of housing our guests, economic development, and taking parking off the waterfront and putting it in a place where it seems the majority of voters want to see it placed.
Sounded pro-development to me.
Councilor Earls?
I guess I'm not sure what 60 or even 90 days means here. No one's breaking ground in a month. I don't see the rush. My successor, I actually looked around the room for him, hoping he was here. I would take his advice. I'd like to leave it to him. This is what he does for a living. And I owe him at least that. I think I owe the downtown, I owe Ward 2 at least that. I'm not against it. This board did not publish it, so yes, you can make the argument, it's already been published. I didn't have it published. No one could come to me and said, what did you do? What were you thinking? No, they wouldn't come to me. I didn't make that decision. So I'm not saying no to this. I'm saying let the next council pick it up. I would love to see it come the first week, get voted on, published, and go the third week. I'd love to see that. So it's done by the end of January. No one's going to be looking to break ground, I guarantee you, in 30 to 60 or even 90 days. We're not slowing down a single project.
Just to add, I believe it would have to go through the joint hearing with the planning board. Is that correct?
90 days.
Yes, that's correct. A joint hearing would have to be held again. We'd go through the same process we went through for the last several months. And one of the concerns about timeline is actually the permitting process is added to it, construction season's added to it. If one of these projects is able to move forward during the next year, and I would hope both, the mayor's obviously starting to work more on getting the state funding. There's been a lot of other capital projects to focus on. We'd like to get the state funding now for the garage. If we're able to get those projects going, we're going to have to deal with the ordinance adoption, which is before you right now, permitting process for both of those projects, depending on when they come in, and the construction season. And unfortunately, it would mean potentially pushing off another year or two each of these projects, depending on how long it takes.
Any further discussion?
I don't think that's true.
What are we voting on?
We're-
One reading? One reading?
We're voting on to waive the rules and approve in one reading ordinance number 4.
Okay, roll call.
Councilor
Point of
Jones.
order. Don't we have a amendment on the floor?
Generally.
No, I think the
I'm sorry.
amendment passed.
It was never acted on.
No, I'm sorry. That,
Generally?
Generally.
yeah, that was never voted on, correct?
Oops.
There is, to take the two words generally out. Thank you.
As amended?
Well, that would be, first vote would be on the amendment to take the two words generally out, which you're
Have a
on.
first and second on that?
You do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Wow.
Now,
Now we have a motion on the floor to waive the rules and approve in one reading as amended. Councilor Jones.
I'm going to vote yes on this.
Councilor Sullivan.
No.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darvin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchinson.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Proud of that one.
Ordinance 5, second reading.
I'm done.
That's section 20, personal wireless communication services. Delete the words district.
Motion approved.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion? Roll call.
Aye.
Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darragh.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog. Councilor Hutchinson.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes. Ordinance 6, second reading.
Section 21, Plum Island Overlay District. Submitted Councilor Connell and Darabin.
To approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darabin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchinson.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes. Second reading, ordinance 7.
Section 13, 131, service areas. Easterly side in front of the property at 153, 155 State Street for approximately a distance of 65 feet. Submitted Councilor Gregory D. Earls.
To approve.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Jones.
Aye.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darabin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchinson.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes. Move on to committee items. Budget and finance.
Motion to
Anything coming out?
Yes, motion to remove.
Really?
Oh, yes, got one more thing. Motion to remove harbor master retained earnings from committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to recuse myself from this vote since my son works with a harbor master during the summer. Thank you.
Councilor Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. President. Now we have a chance to talk about Councilor Hutchison behind his back.
I'll be listening.
Okay.
Nice suit,
I'm
huh?
going to build a building?
Something like that. I had a great speech prepared about this, but I think I'm a little frazzled at the moment after all these, so I'll
Very
keep
well
it
done.
really brief. The Budget and Finance Committee met last week also as a committee of the whole. The three
Yeah.
committee members were there along with Councilor Connell. And I, first of all, want to thank the members of the Harbor Commission and the Harbor Master, Paul Hogue, for all of their work. Many of their members are here tonight, and we're also at that committee hearing. And basically, this is something that they have talked about for many years. Councilor Cronin was a member of the Harbor Commission for 8 years or so, and it was very much a topic when he was on there. Bob Dow, who's been on for 20 years, has been talking about it for a long time. And basically, it's all about improving amenities for transient boaters. And when we say transient in this case, we mean people who are coming in and spending money in town. There are, thousands of boaters that are coming through here on an annual basis, many of whom have opportunities to go to other communities like Situate, Manchester. We discussed a number of harbor communities that have much better amenities. So the space we have right now is very constrained. There has been discussion, and we've certainly heard from members of the public in public comment or through emails or conversations about concerns about the location. What is being looked at right now, the general location would be along the current area in the fishing pier. The Harbor Commission would have an 8 to 9 month process where there would be public input as to the size of the building and the height and also the location. So I think there'd be plenty of opportunities for public, including us, and we've also got another invitation for the council tonight, as we did last week at the meeting, for us to be involved in that. Sort of the thing that seals the deal for me is for this to go through the design phase, which is what we'd be approving right now with this funding. The Harbor Commission would need to come back to us to approve additional monies from their retained earnings. So in another 9 months or so, that council next year would get another opportunity to vote yay or nay on this. And I think that's really kind of where we have leverage, and so I'm sure there'll be a process that will incorporate a lot of input and make the best decision in the exact location, whether it's where it is or 17 feet further downriver or whatever, whatever is best for the community as a whole. We've heard from a number of folks that are stakeholders, I'd say, in this process. Ian Orman spoke in favor of it that night, and also not the Waterfront Trust per se, but members, one member at least from the Waterfront Trust spoke in favor of it. So, and the other key piece here is this is boater fees, so this is not going to impact the taxpayers, but just getting public facilities and amenities for showers, bathrooms, I mean, that would be great for any of us like myself who don't own a boat and are looking for invitations from anybody who does have a boat. It seemed like everybody at the meeting last week had a boat, and I want to talk about community boating for those of us who are too poor to afford one. Someday we'll work on that. But we did approve it 3-0 and hope that you will support it as well.
That was the short.
That was the short version. I'll send you the unabridged version.
So the next time you need a shower, you're going to carry a towel down to the waterfront?
Yeah.
Just learned that from someone in City Hall, that short version. Any further discussion?
No one's safe tonight.
Roll call?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Not my neighbor anymore.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Councilor Cronin?
Yes.
Councilor Darvin?
Yes.
Councilor Earls?
Yes.
Councilor Harquist?
Yes.
Councilor Herzog?
Yes.
Councilor Hutchison?
Oh, yeah.
He's not here. Councilor O'Brien?
Yes.
Transfer passes.
Don't tell her.
We might need him on the next one.
Come back
You
again?
don't have anything else, do you?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Brian.
Joint education?
Thank you, Mr. President. Joint Ed met last week as, in addition with the Council of the Whole, and again, thank you for everyone who did show up. It was a good showing. We did speak in depth about the exorbitant deficit that the school budget has right now. The three major contributors are transportation, the school lunch program, and of course, special education. There was an additional bus added this beginning of the school season due to the increase in ridership, and that costs close to $55,000. Our school lunch participation has decreased from 48%, which is equivalent to 1,012 lunches daily, and has decreased to 37%, which is down to 792 daily. This past September, it decreased to 34%. A recent survey with 400 parents responding felt that students were not given enough time for lunch. Out of those 400 parents, 160 said that if there's more time for lunch, they would consider purchasing lunch for their kids. That would equal 160 more lunches per day, not including their siblings. Chartwells has been trying some new initiatives within our school system, and one of them is the deli station at the Knox School, and that has turned numbers around slightly. Some consideration has been discussed with going back to providing our own lunch program and whether we do it with or without federal reimbursement. The major contributor to the school's deficit are costs associated with special ed. It is no secret that the school department and the parents of special ed children are still feeling the effects of the transition and turmoil of past special ed directors along with staff turnover. Because of this loss in confidence and trust within our parents, our outplacement numbers have increased. Currently, there are 31 outplacements, and that costs our district over $2 million. Superintendent Vaccaro is working hard on rebuilding the trust within the school administration and with the parents of this community. One of her goals is not only to rebuild this trust, but to cut the out-of-district placements in half. It is imperative that we give Superintendent Vaccaro the resources and support she needs to turn Newburyport School District into a great school district and one that we are proud of. She needs our commitment as a council as much as we need hers as our superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. License and permits.
Yes, there may be a little confusion, perhaps on my part. The shellfishing in designated areas, I believe I requested that be brought out, even though it appears to still be in committee. In my absence, I asked for that to be brought out and voted on for the first reading. It was?
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Now, I'll need a second reading, but it's not in committee, so I can't bring it out of committee since it's not there. But I do request a second reading.
Motion to suspend the rules that we might.
We've had two readings.
We had two readings.
Yeah, it's done.
We did too.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Never mind.
Just wanted to be safe.
Strike it.
Strike it. Movable sign application for Exit Realty. The request was actually done on private land, so there's nothing we can do about this. It was on the grass in front of what is known as Davis Electric. That is not owned by the city. We can make no motion. We can make no movement on that. The secondhand motor vehicle license, I have no record of that, and I don't know why that's still sitting there either. Just to do a little housekeeping.
Okay. All right.
So what about Compass?
Too complex. Let it roll. And just there was an inquiry. The Compass Auto Works, it was a bit too complex to take up, so we'll leave that to next license and permit victims.
Thank you. Neighborhood and City Services.
Nothing at this time.
Planning and Development.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to remove order number 1, Cushing Park land transfer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What?
Motion to approve Cushing Park land transfer.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning and Development met on this issue ad nauseum over the course of the last 7 months, I believe, and working closely with the ward councilor and affected parties, we've come to what we think is an amiable solution to all sides, and I would at this time amend the order to read that the City Council of the City of Newburyport transfer the land known as Cushing Park located at Kent, Washington, and Buck Streets from the mayor for the purposes of a senior center and municipal parking to the mayor for the purposes of municipal parking and parkland open space. and I would append to the order a map that was approved by the committee and has been distributed to the council, which outlines 78 proposed parking spaces on the area that is principally used at this time at, you don't have the map? I'll have a copy for the, thank you, Mr. Clerk. That is currently used principally as the designated parking area to be held by the city for the purpose of parking, and that the area currently used as playground and open space to be maintained by the Parks Commission as playground and open space at the pleasure of the mayor.
Any further discussion? Councilor Connell?
Yeah, and the chair, I guess, did the chair report
I
on the vote?
offered an amended, I guess in a long way round the mountain, I offered an amended order which needs a second.
I did second it. I would just like to stand in and speak in favor of this, as the committee did vote in favor of moving this forward. I think that this is a rather artful resolution of what was somewhat controversial and has been for about 6 years, and I wish to commend the ward councillor for his work on this. It does serve multiple needs, both as a park and as a parking area during snow emergencies, and this particular resolution seems to kind of accommodate both of those competing needs for the use of this land, while clearing away the underbrush that was left over from the proposal to place the senior center there several years past.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Can I repeat the order, Mr. President? So it's amended to state and park land.
Open space.
Open space pursuant to map, and this is the map I'm going to make Exhibit A, and just reference it as Exhibit A, but it's entitled Old Senior Center Project Schematic Parking Lot Design. This one here.
Correct.
That's the motion. Did you say roll call?
Roll call.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Councilor Cronin?
Yes.
Councilor Derriman?
Yes.
Councilor Earls?
Yes.
Councilor Harquist?
Yes.
Councilor Herzog?
Yes.
Councilor Hutchinson?
Yes.
Councilor Brown?
Yes. Anything else, Councilor?
I'd like to remove a request for discontinuance of westerly side of Harnches Way.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to disapprove the request for the discontinuance of westerly side of Harnches Way.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. In testament to the slow and deliberate process of governance, a number of issues have come to light here as we looked at what was presented to us as a simple land swap for the purposes of cleaning up some dumpsters, and turned into what was potentially a backdoor development proposal. And having fully vetted this, I feel that the largesse of the city in accommodating somebody who was perhaps somewhat ambiguous about his true intentions does not deserve our attention, and therefore I'd ask you to vote against this discontinuance.
So you want a yes vote?
Vote for.
I need a yes vote
Yes
to
vote.
to not vote for it.
Any further discussion?
Be clear.
Councilor Sullivan?
I would just like to add one thing to that. It has nothing to do with this vote one way or the other, but I realize that a lot of us in this room don't know who Councilor Harold Hanch was. But the city saw fit to dedicate that section of roadway to him, and right now, it looks deplorable. And something needs to be done with it. It needs to be addressed so it looks a lot better than it does. That's disrespectful to that guy's memory.
Councilor Herzog?
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I'd like to thank Councilor Sullivan for those remarks. I always think about Councilor Harnch, as the picture's right, photo's right behind me, and as I recall, I believe actually Mr. Jones, Clerk Jones actually created that portrait. So that's who Mr. Harnch is for anyone who does not know.
That was a self-portrait.
I was going to say something.
That was Tom O'Brien, actually.
Oh.
I thought it was Tom O'Brien.
Nobody's safe tonight.
That's the next one. Harold was a member of the city council for 16 years. He did have a business on Pleasant Street, and it was a hairdressing business. So, on Pleasant Street, I think it's right where, I'm showing my age, it was across from where Kresge's was, which isn't there anymore. When it was across from where the card shop wasn't there anymore.
Better stop.
Keep it up, you're not going to be there. Where the pizza factory is right now. That's where his salon was for many, many years. So, any further discussion? Roll call.
It's a motion to approve the request for discontinuance. The second on that was? Motion to disapprove, excuse me.
Motion to disapprove.
Darvin.
And the second was Darvin.
Thank you.
Was the Darvin.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darvin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Hutchison.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes, and thank you very much.
Sadly, Mr. President, Planning and Development rests.
Okay, thank you. Great job this year. Public safety,
Nothing to report.
public utilities,
Nothing coming out tonight.
rules committee,
Nothing to report.
Never any rules.
go to the order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, seeing that this is my last meeting, I'd like to thank a
It's
couple
not,
of people.
it hasn't been,
Oh, well, you know what, it's going to be mine. So there you go. So I'd be remiss if I didn't thank three people, Gail, Robert, and Joseph Darvin, for giving me the opportunity to serve the city for the last 6 years and their sacrifice of time. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And to the rest of the council, to Barry. Barry, please don't forget that the microphone is always on. To Hutch, good luck in making new bombs. To Ed, good luck in your music career.
Thank you.
Ari, good luck with the job search.
you can burn my toaster or anything.
Allison, good luck with the job search too. And if you need some sand, I do have some. To Councilor Sullivan, good luck trying to keep quiet the next 2 years. To Greg, good luck to you, and if you ever decide to run for mayor again, remember, like I always said, it runs through 5 and 6. To Don Jones, good luck finding a job within 150 miles of Newburyport.
1,500 even.
To one of my very, very good friends, City Council President O'Brien, good luck with Mr. Vogel next year. And for my partner in crime for the last 4 years, Mr. Cronin, I have a big bottle out in my car. And I've got industrial strength Tylenol for you, and I have one for the mayor as well. So thank you. And just a couple of things. I'd like to just give out to the incoming city councilors coming in. These are some
Steve Hutchinson, geographer.
Steve Hutchinson for city council. Can openers.
I got plenty more where that came
I
from.
don't know why I have them, but I do.
I've got about, you were giving them away when you.
So I'd like to give those, and Greg, I'd like you to give that, if you could give that to Jared, that would be great.
That's your last act. Exactly.
I got more if you need them. I won't be needing them.
And just a couple of other things too. For the planning department, Andy Port. Andy, just so you know, when there's a meeting before the council meeting, you don't need to speak into that because the mics aren't on. because I'm in the music business, don't touch the microphone. You don't have to touch it, it's okay.
Now you tell them.
And you know, for my last thing, these are the keys to City Hall. These are the keys to the car. I'd like to give this to Larry Junta.
Hey. Name's on it, dude. You can't do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dervin. There is another meeting scheduled for the 30th. So.
I would like to make a motion
Not many of
to
us will
cancel.
be here, but not many of us will be here, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. Oh, right now, the meeting is scheduled for the 30th. That's whatever.
So there's a motion on
Make a motion to cancel the final council
Well, if you
meeting?
make a motion to cancel, there's still one piece of business here we have to do. You rule on one reading. Don't we have to go to license 2 readings?
No.
Okay,
License
so I'll
one
say,
reading.
okay, thank you.
I'll second the motion then to suspend.
What? And not have a meeting the 30th.
The 30th.
30th? Yeah.
30th.
It's the 30th of December. I know you don't have plans, but
I'm going to have knee surgery a few days before, so I'll be drugged up for the last meeting if we
Maybe
do
we
have
should
one.
have.
Will we know the difference?
So it'll be normal, right?
Even more than usual.
So how can we tell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, are we going to vote on that?
One roll call or voice vote? Voice vote.
It's up to you, Mr. President.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No meeting.
So there'll be no meeting the 30th?
Correct.
Everybody wants to be elected.
So Councilor Dervin and I won't have to be the only ones that missed it. Councilor Dervin?
Thank you, Mr. President. One final thing for all the outgoing city councilors. It seems that it is a tradition within this city that when you are on your way out, you leave your mark within the city. And if you open the drawers and give a history lesson to what happens in this city, I would like everybody to pull out their drawers and, well, keep their drawers on.
I'll get around
Pull
to it.
out their drawers and leave your sign.
I'll get around to it.
Councilor Jones?
well, thank you, Mr. President, not to leave the last opportunity to speak untaken. I appreciate what Councilor Dervin started here, and I hope we all take our at-bats as we leave. I'd like to thank my fellow councilors, both past and present, all of them. From each of them, I've learned a great deal, not only about them and about the city, but about myself, that I've gained personally from my experience of dealing with each and every one of them, past and present, that I hope the friendships that we've formed here while we've plodded our way through legislative practice has been and will continue. And more importantly than that, I'd like to thank the people of Newburyport who placed their trust in me for 8 years. It has been a wonderful personal learning experience to serve. It's humbling, it's hard, and it's infinitely rewarding. I think that everyone should take a chance at elected service. If you should be so fortunate as to be chosen and entrusted, that you'll find it to be an absolutely wonderful experience. And because we have a few incoming councilors here, and because I'm prone to quoting because I know that my ability to speak is somewhat limited, so I fall on the on my betters.
No, we're not buying that.
And so I thought of from Hamlet, Lord Polonius' advice to his son Laertes, where he said, "Above all else, this, to thine own self be true, and it follows as day the night, that you can be not false to any man. Farewell, and let this blessing season you."
You're up, Greg.
Hutch raised his hand.
You
Any
can
other
go first.
farewell
I did
speeches?
this last time.
You can go next.
He did this the last time.
This is my second time around.
I'll just splice it from my DVR of the last.
Councilor Earls.
I certainly don't have anything so eloquently prepared. It's been 12 years that I've been on council. I will miss most representing the people of Ward 2. I've made lasting friends. I'm going to get emotional. Something I said I wouldn't do, but it's hard.
Very hard.
I only left the position of a Ward 2 council to vie for another office. And I knew it was taking a risk because I knew I would lose that honor, that right to represent such wonderful people. But running for mayor, I expanded my horizons. I met so many other wonderful people that will be friends forever now. I can just tell that. The support that I had, the support my family had was just so heartwarming. It's hard not to get emotional. And the people that came in here today and directed their comments to me was very difficult to keep tears back. I look forward to staying involved in the city. I'm not sure at what capacity now. I want to thank my wife, Nancy. A lot of patience, a lot of nights alone. My two boys who grew up with me as city councilor, they were at the Brown School when I first ran, when the Brown School was still K through 4, and now they're out of college. So to see that happen and what they sacrificed to have me come to these meetings. But I wouldn't have missed it for the world, representing the city and especially Ward 2, the downtown area. And it's not to slight other districts, it's just, I love it there. I love the history, I love the people. I love going down to an open waterfront at every season, being the only one on January 4th walking my dog because it's so cold at 8 o'clock at night there, and I hope I can still do that. I'll stop with the politics. I want to thank everybody.
It never stops.
I doubt it. I want to thank everybody so much, and I wish I had something prepared, but especially Ward 2, I love you.
I'll stay standing then. First of all, in case the NSA is listening, I'm not building bombs in my basement. I need missiles for Raytheon in case.
Same thing. Oh, that's better.
See?
The NSA knew that.
I'd like to start, though, by thanking my family as well, because it's been a lot of years that I've been doing this as well. I'd like to thank my wife, Vicki, my stepson, Adam, and my son, Joshua, and daughter, Dina. They spent a lot of times home alone while I went to meetings, and I appreciate their support through the years as well. And I also appreciate all your support and friendship over the years as well, too. It's meant a lot to me. I also appreciate the fact you took me back for the last year. It's nice to go out on my own terms and see my friends on the council again and work with you all again for another year, and I appreciate that. So basically, I just want to end with saying it's been an honor to serve the city of Newburyport, and who knows, I might be back again. Thank you.
That is the same speech we gave last time, and then you came back.
Okay, I know I'm not going to get the last word in here because the president always has the last word. But nobody understands the sacrifices that public service brings more than the family. So for that reason, I have to thank the family. When I announced that I was going to run for mayor, of course, the first one I told was my mother. And she had gone through 8 years of my father being in the mayor's office, and you know, a number of years prior to that. And the first thing out of her mouth was, "Oh God," but she was very supportive. and like Greg said, it was a very humbling experience and a very good experience as well. But most of all, I want to thank the voters who allowed me. Oh boy, here we go. I'm coughing.
Lie.
But I want to thank the voters out there, though, too, that saw to it that I had the opportunity to serve on a body that my father, my grandfather, my brothers, and God knows how many cousins have had the honor of serving. And that too has been a real rewarding experience, and I'm not going to be quiet for the next 2 years. I'll still be out there paying attention to what's going on, and maybe someday, who knows, maybe Steve and I will both be back here. But thank you guys too for all the help that you've given me over the last 2 years. Thank
For all you people that are leaving, you know, this is my 16th year as a city councilor, my 9th as a president. And I want to thank you, all you 5 that are leaving, for your vote as president, your support, your help. I mean, being up here, it's a hard job, and you need all the support of all of you. And you 5 have been so supportive of me over the years. Especially Councilor Jones during the meetings. I would look at him, and we'd have to have the late files come in, and I just go, and he just, bam, he just go right in. And I appreciate that very much, everything you've done over the years. And Councilor Sullivan, Councilor Jones, I guess I'm the only native left, I'm not too sure. The last of the Mohegans, I guess, you know. Daniel Day-Lewis will be playing me, I guess. And the 5 councilors that are leaving, you know, I've enjoyed working with you. You know, sometimes we don't agree on everything, but when we leave the chamber, we go out as friends. And that's what one thing, you know, years ago, that didn't happen. There was a lot of arguments with people. You might disagree with one of you. You might disagree with me. You know, I'm going out as a friend of you, and I hope you go out as friends with me. It's been an honor to serve with you 5, and damn it, you'll be missed. Take care.
So moved.
We'll sign the thing, don't worry.
Or not.
I was
He'll be back.
hoping to get to make a speech in there.